here at Theodore Payne Foundation. Lovely co-host Katie. Katie, say hello to the folks.
Hello, folks. Thanks for joining.
We're both really excited to have everyone here for our presentation today. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Metropolitan Water District and Southern California Edison, who made this presentation possible. Everyone, please, we invite you to put your questions, comments in the chat. If you're watching on YouTube, yes, please do so. And we will get your questions to Ron ASAP. So yeah. Katie, anything else?
Well, if you're tuning in today on YouTube, be sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so you can stay in touch.
Yes, amazing. Our Poppy Hour YouTube, we have so many resources, not just on Poppy Hour, but our fire guides are there, landscaping for Firewise, and obviously drought resistant gardens. It's all there. YouTube. We are a fountain of resources. So with that, we will start. I'm here in Sun Valley, Wikagna, the place of thorns. Home to the Wikanbatam. We appreciate all of our neighbors in all directions, and we value their traditional ecological knowledge. Ron, how are you? How you feeling?
I'm great. So happy to be here.
I'm glad that you're here. So this is the backstory on how we got Ron. TPF was doing a planting event out along the 710 corridor cities, gateway cities, decentralized gardens to build community. That's how we met Ron. And Ron, we were doing the site visit, and he took me to his backyard, and I felt like a giant. I felt like, oh my goodness, is this what Alice in Wonderland felt like? This is kind of cool. And it also took a while for me to realize it was like that Karate Kid moment where I'm in a giant forest, but it's little. That's what it's like to be in Ron's yard. So Ron, do you remember that day?
Yeah, I'm always eager to show off the garden, honestly. So
it was fantastic. And are you going to take us on a tour now, or did you want to wait a little bit?
Yeah, we could do it. We could do a quick walkthrough.
Yeah, let's do a quick walkthrough so that everyone can get the Ron's Forest experience.
So this is my garden.
Look at that. Oh my goodness.
Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm trying this from my phone. This is a view of the garden at sunset. I usually have some of my oak trees right around here. Right now they're inside.
That's pretty cool. Ron, I don't know if you can see this, but we're getting all kinds of love on the chat. There's hearts and happy faces floating all over.
Nice.
Thank you for
so many
doing
reactions,
that, folks.
Yeah, this is a collected Japanese boxwood, a ficus tree here, a little bit overgrown. One of my favorite trees here, Brazilian pepper tree, has a really interesting kind of twist in the trunk.
Wow.
Hollowed out a little bit. This is a tree that's really interesting. It's actually a tropical tree. It's called a Brazilian rain tree. So during the day, you'll see that the leaves are open, and at nighttime, the leaves actually close. So throughout the day, this tree looks different at different times and spaces.
It looks like it might have some sort of veins going through it. Is it a Fabiaceae?
That's a good question. I know it's a Brazilian rain tree.
Okay.
This is another favorite species of mine, Afra Portulacaria, or Jade tree. Very popular right now amongst bonsai enthusiasts. So it's known for its corky bark. Even though it's a succulent, it has really corky bark. Love to tell you more about that story soon. right? But bonsai can be small as this little tree and as large as this cork bark jade. The corking was actually created by bonsai elder Frank Yee. He had a bug infestation in his bonsai garden. He sprayed with pesticides. It was actually DDT. And there was this was like way back in the 70s, I believe. And there was some kind of genetic mutation that created this corkiness, which is now very popular because it makes the succulent look like a tree.
So, Ron, we're getting a question in chat. Are you saying cork as in odd or cork as in floats?
Cork as in floats. Yeah.
Thank you for the clarification.
And so thinking about native trees, this is actually a California juniper.
That looks awesome.
Whoa.
California junipers are very special because most of them have a lot of deadwood, right? So these are survivors that grow in the desert. This came out of the Mojave Desert. It was collected by an elder that I'll share a little bit more about with y'all in the future. And it has clung to life. So when I got this tree about 7 years ago, it was near death, and now it's thriving. It could always be healthier, but it's going strong. All this part of the tree is not alive anymore, but it's been carved and shaped. And then this is the live part of the tree. It comes from the soil, and then this is where all that comes from. These trees are known as Kishu Shimpaku, and they come from my bonsai teacher, Gary Ishii. They were cultivated by him and his family. His father, Mas Ishii, is one of the bonsai elders of Southern California. And they are grafted. So these are, the foliage is called Kishu Shimpaku, and they're grafted on top of a San Jose juniper.
Okay. And we just had, I'm sorry, Ron, we just had a question in the chat about what is the name of the California juniper from the desert? If you want to answer that now, fantastic. But we do have a link of California native trees that are suitable for bonsai, and we'll be sharing that link shortly.
Yeah, it's California juniper. That's the name of it. This is also another California juniper that I recently acquired. It's a small tree, but it's still very old. So just for context, like this tree right here is probably over 150 years old. And it's been in bonsai care for the past about 50 years or so.
Did you say 150?
At least, yeah.
Wow. So
Yeah,
that's really a heritage tree.
Yeah, but definitely. It's been in a bonsai pot for about 50 years now.
Oh,
Ron, the chat is dying to know what was your first tree.
Oh, unfortunately, it's not with us anymore.
But you can still tell us what it was.
It was a juniper for sure. Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
These are boxwoods, just regular boxwoods, right? People have these in their front yards. These are actually, this is a collected boxwood out of my neighbor's yard. So we dug it up. There's one underneath here as well. We dug up the box, put it in a pot, and eventually you can have something like this after you collect it from somebody's yard. So very sustainable bonsai. This is a collected Japanese boxwood. There's a black pine. It's pretty overgrown back here. Very popular bonsai species. One of my favorite trees. This is a cork elm in the literati style. This is a grape. It produces white grapes.
Oh, wow.
That is cool because that's
That is a
vine.
grape.
Yeah.
So you've made
Okay.
the vine into a tree.
There's actually somebody I can't remember his name, in Northern California, who owns a vineyard. And so he's always air layering pieces from his old vines to create bonsai.
Okay, so Ron, people want to know, does it produce edible grapes? Do the birds get them first?
I have not been able to accomplish that, but the elder that I got it from, his name is Jack. He showed me pictures of it producing grapes.
Awesome.
Wow.
This is, I'll show a couple more and then we'll go back inside. This is a Texas cedar elm or wing cedar elm. It actually comes from Texas, so it was brought to me. And then this is fun. This is a clump. Clumped. The fun part I was going to show you is this is a pomegranate bonsai.
Oh,
This is a pomegranate bonsai
Oh.
tree. And if we zoom in a little bit, you can see
I can see pomegranates.
that's a
Yeah,
pomegranate.
they're there.
It's so tiny. It looks
That's a
like
pomegranate.
Arctostophilus.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is an overgrown tree, but this is a strawberry guava tree. It produces lots of strawberry guavas. They're very delicious. The birds mostly eat them. And then I'll just show one more. This is a tree that I'll
Ooh.
show a little bit later in a video. This is a cork oak. So this is what they use to
Wow.
make corks for wine bottles. Yeah.
Awesome. Oh my goodness, Ron, as you walk back inside, people are asking about your irrigation schedule and what
Yeah.
kind of pots you use.
I actually have a video that I can show about that.
Fantastic.
Okay.
But essentially, this is my controller, and I have it scheduled. I can actually just show us real quick. So I just press that button, and then the water starts coming from the spigots.
I imagined you walking through the forest with one of those water things that has a long spout and just watering each tree and talking to it.
Yeah.
That's what it was in my imagination. Now that I know it's all automated, I'm a little
Automated.
disillusioned.
So that's on a timer. That
Okay.
that system, and that system was built so that I don't lose trees when I go on vacation, which happens
Yeah.
with bonsai people.
And look at that. Oh my goodness. Look at those trees. Ron, how much time a week do you spend on your hobby? It's more than a hobby, your passion. How much time a week do you spend on this passion?
I'm gonna leave the phone and go to the computer now.
Okay.
Okay.
So in the chat, where can beginners learn more about growing bonsai? We will have a link, I believe, to the bonsai club that Ron belongs to. Ron, you're back. People have questions. People have so many questions, and we haven't even started the presentation yet.
I know. Very active chat. They want to know how often you water.
So watering is required it needs every morning watering. So the sprinkling system is something that I use in the summer. I just set it up actually. So my good friend Tom Lau and Big Joe, who are two of my bonsai friends from my bonsai club, Baikoen Bonsai Club. So they came over and helped me to set up my system, and I needed it because I was going on vacation and it was one of the hottest months of the year. And I was able to successfully set it up. I've only had it for about 3 or 4 months. My teachers all teach me to water by hand. So that's definitely tradition is to water by hand. Best is to water by hand. But I'm a full-time teacher. I have 2 small children and a dog, and I'm married. So the watering system definitely helps.
And you're going to talk about how you incorporate bonsai into your teaching, right?
Yeah, thank you so much for that transition. So I'm really excited. Started off with some images from the garden. Can we see this okay?
Yes.
Okay. So just excited to share a little bit more about my passion. So I definitely position myself not as an expert, but as a very passionate bonsai enthusiast, a passionate bonsai hobbyist, a passionate student. And so I definitely want to share some of the teachers that have shown me the way. And these are the picture on the right hand with the bald cypress, the one that I'm wearing the hoodie, that tree actually started the whole thing. So if you have not been to the Huntington Garden, they have one of the best public bonsai exhibits in the country right here in our backyard. Visiting that for the first time is what kind of changed my life. And from there, I met a Mexican guy who was selling bonsai trees out the side of his truck in Huntington Park.
With the coconuts.
Yep.
Bonsai and coconut.
My wife actually bought me my first tree for my birthday. That was about maybe a decade ago. And it's been an obsession. I think the journey began when I came to my first club meeting. So anybody that's interested in bonsai, I encourage you to join a club. And Southern California is actually the epicenter for bonsai. Like this is where bonsai cultivation happened and started. And so on the left is a picture of Lindsay Shiba, who's one of the leaders of the Baikoen Bonsai Club. I brought in one of the trees that I showed earlier, and I started my journey there. From there, I met Gary Ishii in the Ishii family, who owned Shikugo N, one of the premier bonsai nurseries in Southern California. So they specialize in these Kishu Shinpaku trees that Mas Ishii, the elder in the background, who's no longer with us, rest in peace to Mas, who was a teacher to many bonsai elders now in the community. Gary and the family are carrying on the tradition. And so just much love to Gary and the Ishii family who have shown me the way. And bonsai is community, and I'm a community-oriented person. And so this is my teacher, Gary, along with my big homie, big bonsai bros, Gabriel Gonzalez and Sean Stanton. So these are my good friends in the bonsai community, and there's so many others. This is Jack Sherman, who early on my bonsai journey I met, and literally like he passed on almost most of his collection to me. So a lot of the trees that you saw back there were trees that Jack started about 50 years ago. He practiced bonsai for over 50 years before he sold, I say sold, quote unquote. He really gave me many of the trees because he wanted to find them a good home. And so what I want to show you here is, yeah, and I love Jack. I haven't been in contact with him for a while, but I give a lot of props, recognition for him for starting me on my journey. And the garden, right? This is what that back area is. So when I moved to my current house, I've been here for about 6 years. These were the trees that I had here on the right side. On the left side was that back area that you just saw, the garden. And so it was just full of some junk back there. I cleaned all that out, started bringing in trees, and eventually it turned into this.
It turned into that forest. Oh, wow.
Yeah, and someone mentioned olive trees. I didn't respond. Olive trees are one of the best bonsai species. They do excellent here in Southern California. And it's one of, they just grow so hardy, so strong. You could take a cutting from a bonsai, from a olive, like a large olive tree, put it in soil, and you can get a bonsai tree in the future. So this is what the garden looks like a little bit more now. And I wanted to just play a little clip from a video that my friend Tom Lau did. And I'm talking a little bit about my love for bonsai and what I feel about it.
We will have
Connects
this
me to
available
nature,
later.
connects me to the sky and the earth and the temperature and the sun. And it's just a beautiful experience to interact with the trees and to interact with nature and to kind of, you know, see the beauty that the creator has in these little miniature trees and the art form that we create. So I'm just really happy to share that with the world and to share that with my good friend Tom here. Looking forward to seeing all the bonsai community at the next club meetings or the next show as soon as this quarantine is over.
One or two tips for.
Thank you, Ron. You know, it's really wonderful that you not only acknowledge where you learn, but you know, the ancestors of the trees. And that whole the lineage. Imagine if those trees can tell stories.
Absolutely, and that's the way I look at it, right? Because my background is as an educator, so I've been an educator for the past 17 years in different parts of Los Angeles. I teach a class called Ethnic Studies. Right now, actually, I lead an ethnic studies program, a K-12 interdisciplinary ethnic studies program. So I'm an instructional coach. I work with teachers. Maybe some of them are on the call. I'm not sure if you're here or not. A couple of my teachers said they were going to stop by that I work with, but so a lot of, for me, bonsai is partially storytelling, it's community. And, you know, as I'm Mexican-American Chicano, as someone who lives here on Tongva land in Tovangar, you know, I think often of the ancestors of this land and what it looked like before colonization, before the metropolis, right, that is Los Angeles. And for me, right, as I drive in my car on the freeways from one place to the next, and you know, there's so much concrete in this city. I work downtown LA, right? And I live in East LA, so I really drive through the cityscape. And so to be able to come back home, right? And kind of come back to the refuge of my garden. It's something that brings me a lot of peace and serenity. It's something that helps me to deal with stress and anxiety during COVID and how we were all isolated. It was really something that helped me to get through that. And I think bonsai has that power and the potential. It's meditative. And as I said in that video, it helps me to connect with nature, right? So I'm always aware of how hot it is or how cold it is, the wind. I'm aware of the sun and the sky and how many clouds there are that day. I'm aware of that because I care about my trees. At nighttime, I'm often in the garden. I can see stars, I can see the moon, right? So like I'm really in tune with that. And I don't think I would have that without this bonsai practice. So bonsai practice is medicine. Bonsai practice is healing, and it's a meditation, so me and my friends, like, we'll start working on a tree and literally time, like, we'll lose track of time and time just kind of moves like at this different rhythm, so but I'm going to pause for a moment, if Katie or Brenda, if you wanted to bring in any questions, but I wanted to make it
no, so far you can't see it in the chat, but you are getting so many heart and hand clapping emojis.
Yeah,
I think that's the most I've ever seen on any coffee hour that we've done. So don't worry, everyone. Yes, we will have this available on YouTube, and we will also link the videos that Ron is showing in the presentation in the description, so that everyone gets the consideration and attention, and the acknowledgement that they deserve.
That was so great.
I'm going to move to cut. Go ahead,
Ron. If you can hide, I know you want to see me and Brenda, but I think the view of us is obscuring the presentation. If you can like minimize us, yeah. So sorry.
It's okay if you delete us. We're still here. We still love you.
We'll keep talking to you.
Gallery, what do I, for view, I put speaker?
And yeah, anything with just a single person, I think speaker is good, not gallery.
I promise I know how to use Zoom, y'all. I'm not sure what's happening.
It's, it happens. We're live and we're real. We're genuine people.
You guys.
And from the Q&A session, are all oak trees good candidates for bonsai?
I think so. Yeah, oaks have a specific type of smaller leaf pattern, which I think works really well. Smaller could produce smaller leaves. How are we doing with the grayscale now?
It's still there. It's only darker.
Still a black box on the right.
I'm sorry, y'all. I have no idea why that's happening.
That's cool.
It's okay.
We'll just roll with it.
Is that what everybody else sees as well?
I think
maybe
so, yeah.
I think I vote for bonsai 2.0.
It's okay. We're gonna keep
but
going.
in
We're
person,
roll with it.
Just keep going. Bring up your share screen while we talk to Renee. And Renee, do you talk to them? She's talking about the trees. I love talking to trees. I believe they listen to us. So I can answer that question, Renee. When you're out there with your plants, trees, all of these growing things, and you're talking, singing them a song, etc., not only are you reinforcing the connection that you have with your plant, the idea that we are all connected, the scientific principle behind talking to your plants is that exchange of the carbon dioxide into oxygen. So you're helping each other out. So talk to your trees and your plants.
Yeah, and then someone else wanted to know what kind of soil is good for coast live oak bonsai.
That's a pretty big question.
Is there a general good bonsai soil?
We use a mix that Boone is a very well-known bonsai practitioner, brought back this soil mix from his time studying in Japan. So it's one part akadama, which is a Japanese clay, 1 part black lava, which you can find at landscaping businesses, and 1 part pumice. So it's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, and we use that as our mix.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah,
all right, we're gonna let you continue your presentation, and we might go a little late tonight just to account for
mention that. I was mentioning that bonsai has come into my practice as an educator. So a few years ago, I went to take students to see a play called Valley of the Heart, which is about a Mexican family and a Japanese family. It's actually a love story between a Mexican man and a Japanese woman. The Japanese family is taken to an internment camp during World War II, and the Mexican family stands by them, takes care of the land for them, with them, and they have a child, right? The Mexican man and the Japanese woman. And it really helped my students to understand the history in this country where Japanese Americans were excluded and sent to these internment camps. And in studying that, right, like bonsai is a big part of that story. And so I wanted to play this short video, something that I brought into the classroom before, about bonsai as part of the story of Japanese internment, part of the story of cultural survival.
You know, World War II was such a world-shaping event. Bonsai itself was not immune from the impact of that. We always sort of say, like, the popularity of bonsai can be traced back to the World War II kind of time frame of GIs being exposed to Japanese culture while they were stationed abroad, and sort of then came back with this interest in bonsai, which is like half of the story. They had to seek out these Japanese American teachers, and then it's like, well, where were they at during the war? We're sort of looking at it through the lens of bonsai, right? And that's certainly not something you associate with bonsai at all. At least I never did. We just look at the trees and sort of see them for what they are now, but then it's kind of like, how did we get here? Such a complex thing. So just sort of taking a few of the trees that we have in our collections that are connected to these individuals and just telling their story, and we can kind of just see little bits of what it was like and how bonsai still, though, was a source of connection for these practitioners even while they were incarcerated. And the idea of having some space for the community to have some sort of representation, I was sort of struggling to figure out what that looked like. We sort of became aware of Erin Shigaki. There was a piece in the Seattle Times about one of her works she had installed at Bellevue College. She had drawn attention to the fact that the land that the college was originally built on was donated by a family who had acquired it from Japanese Americans as a result of the incarceration of World War II.
Erin, awesome to meet you.
I wish I was with you in that beautiful space too. I love it so much. It's like one of the best places I've installed, for sure. You know, luckily there was no shortage of images of that period, which is kind of amazing, right? I often use Dorothea Lange's photos. She shot.
Oh, wow. Is
Yeah,
that where
so-
you're stopping the video?
For now, yeah. So
Okay.
and that's a really great video. It's a longer video. All those trees that we saw were actually trees that were cultivated or grown in internment camps, and they're still in existence today out in the community. The Pacific
Yeah.
Bonsai Museum is where this exhibit was up, and so I brought that into the classroom as a really important piece. And one of the parts of that story is the Demoto maple. So the Demoto maple is a part of the 50 Objects project. So 50 objects that are stories that are told about them through the lens of Japanese American interment in Japanese American culture survival as well. The Demoto family was a nursery growers, and they were bonsai practitioners as well. And when they were sent to the internment camps, they left this maple tree in their yard. It was in a wooden box, and their neighbors knew about the tree, and the neighbors came and watered the tree, and the tree grew roots through the wooden box and survived. And that tree now is in the Pacific Bonsai Museum in the Pacific Northwest, and it's beautiful. So this is the Demoto maple today, and it's a tree that can be visited, and it's a reminder about the history of bonsai and cultural survival. So I wanted to share that. This is something that gets brought into my ethnic studies class. And I always want to respect the culture, right? As someone who's not a part of Japanese culture, Chinese culture also created penjin and are the foremothers of bonsai. So as a learner and as a student, trying to bring these stories into the students that I work with who are largely Latinx.
Yeah, thank you for that, Ron. I personally learned about bonsai trees and the transfer of land from Japanese people to Mexican people from the history of El Monte and the San Anita racetrack, and even here next to Theodore Paint, just on the other side, there was a station where people were being held to be transferred to internment camps. So thank you for putting that into a historical perspective.
Yeah, there's so much to cover, but I do want to get to some of the oak bonsai. So this is some bonsai in my classroom. A couple years ago, I was awarded a scholarship for studying bonsai. I was able to spend time with Ted Mattson at the Huntington. Bob Pressler, who's the president of California Bonsai Society, worked on the oak tree that's right behind me. So this was a part of the scholarship. And Bob Pressler's work. There he is working on my California juniper as well. So if you imagine this California live oak was cut back like that a couple of years ago, and now it's like this. So they're very vigorous. Wow. This is another teacher of mine that I met through the scholarship. His name is Michael Roberts, and he is an expert in oaks. So he's an expert in cork oaks. Cork oaks have the same or very similar growing patterns as California live oak trees. So the same kind of lessons that apply to cork oak trees also apply to California live oak trees or coastal live oak trees. This is a cork oak tree that I recently acquired that I've been working on with Michael. So all the way on the left is how I originally got it. I don't know if you can tell, but the branches are actually like wired down to create that look, right? That it's a full tree. But in reality, the tree didn't have any bottom branches, right? So it was kind of an illusion. And so we decided to cut it back. In the middle is how we cut back the tree. So almost bare, right? All those branches were already dead in order to see if we can get it to bud out from the bottom. So we did get some buds from the bottom. This is what the tree looks like now. I was not able to move it into the house because it's too heavy. But this is what it looks like right now. And I wanted to show you the progression of, I can share this later. We can share this later when we share the video, a video of Michael Roberts talking about oak. But I wanted to show a cork oak progression. So I took this video yesterday. Tell me if we can see the video and hear the sound.
So I set this up to show the progression of developing sustainable bonsai. So you can literally start with collecting acorns, California live oak acorns, cork oak acorns, coastal live oak acorns. You plant them in little pots and get seedlings. These were planted by my friend Gabriel Gonzalez. Created these seedlings. They're about a year old. Then the seedlings, after 2 years, a little bit more mature. Seedlings at between 3 and 4 years. You can see the development of more corking. This, I believe, is a cork oak, maybe 25, 30 years old. You could see really, I believe it's a cork oak. It could be, I believe so. Notice that this tree is very top heavy. So this is the natural growth patterns of oak trees when you have them in pots. And so our work as bonsai artists is to figure out how to get lower branches. which I'll talk about in just a moment. This is another this is another cork oak. You can see the corking here. This tree is probably older, but this tree more resembles this tree. So this is a cork oak. Earlier, I trimmed back the top growth of the tree so that we can redistribute energy into the bottom growth of the tree. If you notice, these branches here, 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 all these branches are dead. So this has been a bonsai for about 30 years or so. It actually was air layered. Air layering means that you take a branch off of a tree by growing roots on the branch. It was air layered off of a cork oak.
Yeah, so that's a little bit of the cork oak progression, but we did say we would talk about native species. So this is a California live oak progression, very similar video that I'm going to show, and they're also right behind me as well. So this is the next batch that I put together. These are all California live oak trees. So I'll walk you from the acorn to the more mature bonsai. Just wanted to get you a view, and we got the sun setting. So we'll have some sun on some of them. Again, the idea is that you can start one of these trees from an acorn that you collect off the ground. Sustainable bonsai. So from acorn comes a seedling. Honestly, this may be a southern live oak, but it's hopeful. You can see maybe 6, 7 years old. Was kind of going for a cascade with this. Not quite sure what it'll end up as. This is starting to get some bark on it. So a California live oak tree. I've had it for 5 or 6 years. Get it into this pot. That was trying to shorten it into a shohin. It definitely came from Peter Mack, Shohin Master's Garden. This is a California live oak that I got from Barry with Legacy Oak. So in fact, I'm excited to see some growth that we have here on the bottom. This might be a part of redesigning the tree. But yeah, here.
Wow. So each tree has years of time before it actually takes form.
Yeah, I mean, that's bonsai. It's a lot of patience, you know. So I wanted to show, I was trying to figure out how to do this. So I set all that up yesterday and took those videos, right? But this is an example of a stumpy California live oak, and part of the today's event is we said you can grow oak trees on your patio, right? Or on your porch. So this is an example of an old or ancient looking tree, right? But it's very small. It's just a little above shohin. Shohin is this size. So this is a little bit bigger than shohin, but it is still a really beautiful tree. I'm excited to have. And so you could take, for example, like this tree. This California live oak doesn't necessarily have the type of growth that we want. I don't know if I'm whole screen or not. Am I whole screen?
Yeah.
So you could theoretically, and this is what I might do with this tree. I might take off this and actually start new, start fresh. So you can take off like big, huge branches, and then the tree will then pop, right? I have some of these lower branches that are developing down here. The tree will start to pop and develop new branching, and I could turn that larger tree into this tree, right? Which is a smaller tree that I can hold, in my hands. But a part of the description today was also about collecting acorns and planting them. So I wanted to show that process. Let me know if y'all can see. And Katie, you said I'm whole screen, right?
Yes.
Yes, you're full screen right now.
So these were all acorns that I collected today with my children on a walk with my dog from an oak tree that's just right down the street from my house. So when you're collecting acorns, you don't want any acorns that are broken. And you also sometimes, I don't know if you can see this or not, but on the acorns, there's little holes. So those little holes are bugs that get in and start eating the acorns. So those will not plant. And so what you can do is you put them in water, the acorns in water, And any acorns that float are not good. They're not going to plant. So notice here, I collected these today and all of them did not float. So these would be eligible. So what you could do is you can wrap them in a wet paper towel. So a wet paper towel on the bottom and a wet paper towel on top, and wait for them to sprout. So that's one way of doing it. I got that feedback from my friend Barry, a bonsai elder who owns a business called Legacy Oaks. But you can also, you don't actually need to do that. So this is a small pot. Inside is bonsai soil, that mix that I told you, akadama, pumice, and lava. But it can also just be cactus soil. Cactus soil you could buy from Home Depot and is very fast draining. So you take that seedling, you take that acorn, sorry, and you plant it right in the soil.
And the pointy part goes down, right? Cap goes on top.
That's right. So pointy part goes down, crown on top. You cover that, you start watering it, and if you're patient, it'll sprout. And that's where you get these, right? That's where you get these little seedlings. And the seedlings, if you plant it a lot at one time, you can also get a seedling forest, right? So like an oak forest. So these are actually southern live oaks, but again, similar pattern, similar concept. So this probably has about 25 acorns that were planted, and they all propped up like this. And so this is how you can get an oak forest in just a few short years. Literally, this plant is probably less than maybe 5-6 years old, maybe slightly older than that. But I actually have hope that this will be a really cool oak forest in the future. So I'm keeping it healthy and keeping it strong, and keeping the vigor going. So I did promise that display, we planted our oak here. Maybe one day this oak acorn that we planted in here will be a tree like this. This is actually not a coastal live oak. This is a southern live oak, but it has, again, similar growth patterns. So southern live oak, then we have California live oak, cork oak, and then this California live oak that I was showing you as well. So let me pause for a moment, see if there's any questions, and I can also finish with
so many questions, Ron. You take your time, and and we're going to go through the questions. You answered it, the question about how to plant it, the cactus mix, etc. We have a lot of questions coming in about digging up specimens and transplanting, about roots, etc. So
which one do you want to tackle first?
Let's keep going with your presentation and get to all the questions at the end. Do you have a lot more?
No, I don't. I mean,
okay.
I let me just share a tiny bit, and then we'll finish out. Okay. So I do have other progressions. If you follow my Instagram page at bonsai_LA, you can see that. I already showed you the watering system. That was that. Bonsai is all about community. This is David Nui, who has one of the most incredible bonsai gardens in Southern California. Also love actually visiting the trees that inspire our practice as bonsai practitioners, like the bristlecone pines or the incredible redwood forests. And I'm also someone who loves jade trees. So you saw the cork jade collection that I have, not a native species, I know, but a great tree for beginners. This is the cultivar of that species named Frankie. So this is something that I work on regularly, which is cork jade trees. Great for beginners. You really can't kill them. Full sun and cutting back, they respond very, very well. So that's something that I recommend for beginners.
Thank you. And we do have a question in the chat about what our trees are suitable. Katie just dropped the link in the chat for California natives that make suitable bonsai.
And before we go into questions, these are just some advice that I have for beginner bonsai students. Join a club and find a teacher. So at the club, you'll find people that teach classes. So once you join a club, you can find a teacher. A great way to join a club is to go to their show. So Baikoen Bonsai Club has a show in January where it's winter silhouettes. That's trees that no longer have their leaves that were lost during the winter time, so you can see the whole pattern of the tree. Make friends in the bonsai community, find people that will answer your questions, that will help you out. I find a lot of the community on Instagram. So there's a great bonsai community on Instagram. There's excellent books to take. Bonsai Mirai is a platform online that has excellent educational classes. You can pay a monthly subscription. Bonsai U with Bjorn Bjorholm, I think that's how you say his last name, also has Bonsai U. It's a digital platform you can subscribe to, visit people's gardens, and then practice. And we also need to keep our bonsai nurseries going. So Chikugo N in Gardena, there's Yamaguchi Bonsai in Santa Monica, there's House of Bonsai in Southeast LA. I can't remember the city that it's in. There's Kamura Bonsai, Bob Pressler owns. And we'll make sure that we put a full list of all the bonsai nurseries. So I'm going to stop right here and go to questions.
Does the San Gabriel nursery have bonsai trees?
San Gabriel Nursery still has a significant bonsai collection. Yes, absolutely.
And that's one of the nurseries where the owners got sent to internment camps.
Right. Yeah, it was featured in a film. It was a KCET TV show. It might have been a Lost LA episode actually that got aired just about a year ago. That was a really powerful episode for sure.
Very powerful. The descendants are still around. Okay, questions.
Yeah,
My
I'm
goodness,
ready.
Ron.
I don't know where to start.
We'll start at the bottom and work our way up. Tips on getting moss to grow in the soil.
Yeah, moss can look really pretty when you are like gonna do a show. And so yeah, hold on. What did I do? Yeah, moss can be really pretty when you're about to do a show, but it can be dangerous when you are on your tree. So there's a little bit of moss on this tree that you can see down here. So watering produces moss and shade produces moss. You don't really want too much of it on the tree, even though it looks nice, because it can erode at the bark.
I saw some of your trees that had the top dressing with pebbles. Is that to keep the moisture in, like it's the same as mulch?
Yeah, so maybe some of them are more recently repotted, so they might, you can see the topsoil is not like all drifted down together. Maybe that's what you saw. But yeah, we tend to put also sphagnum moss. So we break it up, New Zealand sphagnum moss, we break up in a grinder and then we put on top of the trees after we repot them.
Oh, awesome. From Tom. We put up the list of the native trees, but can native shrubs be made into bonsai? Like
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, any tree that has smaller leaf sizes, because it's all about making proportions, right? So any leaves that has smaller tree sizes, that's the goal. Is that we're trying to create as small leaf sizes as possible. So any species that kind of tend to that. That's why oak is great, right? Because an oak tree does have smaller leaf sizes. And so, you know, this leaf isn't too big. So that's why it makes an excellent bonsai, but they are kind of big, right? So you need to have like a bigger tree. In comparison, this is a Kingsville boxwood. So this is a version of boxwood, but it's called Kingsville, and it has tiny, tiny leaves, right? So this is really good for proportion. This is a Kingsville boxwood grown by my friend Gabriel Gonzalez, who might be on this call or on the YouTube channel, I'm not sure. This is his tree that I acquired just a few months ago. This is mine that I've had for about 6 years. But Kingsville boxwood kind of looks a lot like oak, like an oak style, right? So it kind of lends itself to that. And so this Kingsville boxwood came from Chuck Ware in Wimberley, Texas. These grow incredibly slow, but are great for bonsai, right? And think like handheld bonsai.
So that's a question that we're getting a lot in the chats. How long will it take an oak to become a good specimen?
This tree right here that we're looking at is probably, it's hard to say exactly, but I would say between 35 and 50 years, maybe less. But it all depends on what size pot you put it in, how much fertilizer you're giving it. how healthy the tree is, right? Trees can actually grow pretty quickly, certain species like oak, but it's going to take years. Kingsville grow a lot slower. So surprisingly, this tree is probably about 15 years old, even though it's this small.
Yeah. Another question we're getting from a lot of people are the root systems. How do you keep the root systems in such small pots?
Yeah, that's a good question. So that's why in bonsai, you do need to repot. So you can't keep your tree in that pot forever. You can repot. The goal kind of tends to be like getting it into a smaller pot, right? The smaller pot you can get, the more that you could, the smaller the pot you can get it in, the more of the illusion that it's an older tree, right? In a smaller pot. So we're playing a lot with different kinds of like design principles, and that's one of them. Is we want the illusion of age, we want the illusion of an older tree. And when you put a tree in a smaller pot, it looks older like that. And that's the other thing. Bonsai is also about pottery. So shout out to my friend Gabriel Gonzalez. He's my big bro. This is his pot. And so we also collect pottery as bonsai artists as well. And we also have a lot of ceramicists and potters that are part of the community. And we like to support them because that's a part of the bonsai economy, right? Is the trees and also the pottery, also the stands, right? So behind me, you can see there's a wooden stand, right? So there's also stand makers and woodworkers, right? That are a part of the community. I have a personal friend named Tyler Pfister who's made those stands that you saw in the garden. And he also made this bonsai wire caddy. These are the wires that you use to shape the tree. So a woodmaker, my friend Tyler made this for me out of scratch, right? Just out of a design that I got from Bob Pressler. So there's a lot of different people that we bring into the work, into the community.
So one thing that you haven't talked about, Ron, are tools, the tools that you use for pruning.
Great question. So scissors, right? Bonsai scissors are one of the most important. So this comes from Joshua Roth, who's like it's a high quality scissors that come from Japan, but you can also buy something like this on Amazon, cost about $16, right? And these can be used. This is the number one tool that you need is scissors. This is a concave cutter. So this takes off like big branches and makes like a flush wound on the tree. Pliers are what help with the wires, because when you pull out the wire, you pull out the wire, right? You need to cut the wire with wire cutters, and then you have the wire, and then the wire helps to shape the tree, and the pliers help to move the wires. And so you need pliers. There's a lot of tools. This is my toolkit. So these are all the different tools
wow.
that I use.
That's a kit.
Yeah, and that I lug around. Different tools for different things that you need. These are the wires, right? That we also need. And the tools come in different shapes and sizes. For bigger trees and bigger branches, you need larger tools that can get the job done. So this is a bigger branch cutting tool, right? So tools, I guess, is another part of the collection. But it's not to intimidate folks. Like, this is when you're deep in the hobby, right? To start off with, all you need is some scissors and a couple plants, right? And you can start from there.
And you said earlier that the best beginner tree was that jade tree.
Yeah, succulents are great because they don't die. A lot of people get discouraged because they kill their first bonsai tree. And we're sad about that for sure, but these are very hard to kill. And you can find these at most nurseries. They don't look like this. They kind of look just kind of overgrown like a bush. But the more you cut it back and the more you cut these leaves, the leaf size actually gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And so it really starts to look like a bonsai in a very short amount of time.
This is a great question. The difference between California native trees and more traditional bonsai species.
I think California native trees are wonderful. I mean, traditional bonsai, you kind of think of like junipers, right? Kind of like Mr. Miyagi created in Karate Kid, right? That's where a lot of people enter into the bonsai conversation. But since we're in California, the California native trees are the ones that grow the hardiest, right? So one of the most popular species here in California at the shows are California junipers, right? So that's the species that's the most popular in our bonsai clubs. And there was just a show this past weekend, David's club, can't think of the name of the club all of a sudden, Chino Bonsai Club, and their show was almost 100% California junipers. Beautiful.
I think we have some of them here.
They're all showing the love, all the hearts.
Oh yeah, I think that show was incredible.
I have a question. So a lot of our oaks that we saw at the nursery are in a tall pot because they have a taproot. So do you cut the taproot, or you just kind of fold it down, or how do you deal with that?
Oh, that's a good question. So that's a slow process, right? So if a tree is in a tall pot like that, you can't take it all the way to get it into a bonsai pot immediately. In fact, I have a tree that's not with me, but it's outside. I did that mistake, right? So I had a tree in a tall can like that. Is a coastal California live oak, and I wanted it in a pot about this high. And I knew in my mind that it needed a step before it got into that bonsai container.
Right, a little bit at a time.
But I pushed it. And to get that taproot, right, I had big tools like this, trying to get that taproot off. Sometimes we also have to pull like a sawzall out. So I was like, I had the sawzall out, like trying to get that taproot off. And I lost too much of the soil, right, that it was in. And so by the time I got it into the pot and watered, then the tree looked like it was dying and all the leaves turned brown. Miraculously, it survived. So that's the thing in bonsai, is like we still water even if the tree is showing signs of distress. We put it in the shade. We try to give it love and care, and the tree is now thriving. So a cautionary tale a bit, but also like a happy ending. It's not always.
So what would you have done differently? Like trim it a little bit at a time?
Yeah, so it's always gradual, right? So you gradually get the tree into a smaller pot. You can't immediately get it into a shallow container. You need to give it time and space to be able to get comfortable. And then once it's healthy, then you can cut the roots back a little bit more. And the root, like you have to keep the roots healthy. In order for a tree to have healthy growth up here, the root system has to be healthy down there. Yeah.
This is a really good question. Oh,
yeah,
sorry, go ahead. Indoor bonsai trees. Which ones do well? Is it even possible?
It's really not recommended or possible. It's not impossible. So as an example, I in my classroom, I love plants. I could not be away from my bonsai trees. So when I had my own classroom for about 6 years, I had about 10 bonsai trees in there. Kids love them. Students love to water them. Students love to look at them. They would take them at their desk. They would, it was really like a part of the classroom culture. But I had to phase them out, right? So I would bring in a tree, I would leave it there for maybe a month and then bring it back into the garden. And I kind of had a rotation. So, but it's really not recommended. Trees are not going to thrive inside. And if you keep them inside forever, they won't survive. If you have a really, really good light in the window, like with direct sunlight, maybe something like a succulent plant could do okay. Ficus have done okay with me before. I mean, but this was in a classroom that had walls and walls and walls of windows getting direct and indirect sunlight. And I would open during the day, I'd open all the windows so that they can get air, but they would not survive if they were there long term. Yeah.
Good to know.
We also had
taken over, Brenda. I'm taking the reins.
That's fine. There's so many questions. My goodness.
So Ron, very casually in the beginning of the talk, you mentioned digging up plants out of the ground and turning them from an outdoor normal plant into a little specimen bonsai plant. So what is that process like? If you have an already established plant you're starting with?
Yeah, so that's an exciting process. So there are folks that go out into the desert and collect California junipers, right? And this is on private land, right? Privately owned land where people have permission to do so. And those trees, in a matter of 5 to 10 years with the right care, sometimes you graft a different foliage on the California junipers. Sometimes you keep the native foliage, can turn into an incredible specimen in a matter of 5 to 10 years. And in fact, a lot of the most famous bonsai trees in Japan were collected material that have grafted different foliage on it. I don't participate in that practice right now. But what you can do, we also call it like urban yamadori. So yamadori is a Japanese term for collecting a tree out of a native environment. But a lot of people have shrubs, particularly Japanese boxwoods, in their front yard. So recently I had a neighbor, I saw that they basically cut down like the whole bush that they had like a whole shrub line. And so I knocked on the door and I said, hey, I'm a bonsai person. Can I collect some of your trees? I'll move them out for you. So I collected about 12 of them. About 7 or 8 survived, and they are thriving out in the garden. So these are 50-year-old specimens that can easily turn into a show quality bonsai tree if I give it the proper care, make the right cuts, wiring, fertilizing. But that's a really exciting process. And I really love collecting trees out of people's yards where they don't want them anymore. So instead of the plant dying, right, they can have this other life as bonsai.
Yeah, fertilizer.
That's so great.
Fertilizer
Okay, Brenda.
There's a lot of questions.
What was that, Brenda?
Osmocote is a fertilizer that you can get at like landscaping places that one of my teachers, Michael Roberts, recommends. So you can just kind of put it all year round as a top dressing on top of the soil.
Yeah, so that's good because it's slow release, right?
Release, yeah.
So maybe
Osmocote is in a lot
water
of
it down
behind me. Yep.
if you're using something else.
People give me a hard time because I pay for BioGold, which is kind of like the most expensive fertilizer.
BioGold.
Yeah, but I like giving my trees like, I'm like, oh, I know this is good, right? So I'll spend a little extra dollars to get that fertilizer on them. But there's other much more cost-efficient ways of getting fertilizer on your trees. A lot of bonsai nurseries sell different fertilizers that are not as expensive as BioGold. But that's the one I use and I like it. I stand by it. But also there's like foliar sprays that you can use that, particularly with junipers, can really help them to get that like green color that we're looking for.
Yeah.
And then, the most important thing is aeration, right? That they're in good draining soil, that you're not overwatering, you're not underwatering, and that you are repotting them when they need to be repotted and you're responding to their needs.
Are bonsai trees prone to pests the same way regular size species are?
Probably, maybe even more so, right? And certain species are prone to pests more than others. So like junipers, which is kind of like the quintessential bonsai, is a species that's prone to spider mites. And so kind of keeping on it, you have to do preventative spraying like in the fall and in the winter. You don't want to spray in the spring and in the summer because it's too hot. And if you spray, your trees can get burned by the sun and they can die. So fall and winter are good times to do preventative spraying, but the best defense against pests is a healthy tree. So that's why fertilizing and healthy root structure, repotting in a timely manner is good. Neem oil is an option that you can use. There's also like Bayer slow release. So Bayer has like a slow release that you can put on the soil that kind of does some of that preventative work, and it also acts as a fertilizer.
I want everyone in chat, who would want to take an in-person class with Ron here at TPF. Show the thumbs up, the heart. Oh my goodness, Ron, can you see that? All the little hearts and things flowing. Awesome. Look at that. 3 thumbs up at a time. Keep those thumbs up coming.
I think we have a lot of interest.
It looks like it.
Look at that. Oh goodness. And a heart and thumbs, all different color thumbs. That's amazing. Yeah. My goodness, Ron, weird overtime. Thank you.
Yeah, there's so staying. Much. Should we ask one last question, Brenda?
The YouTube questions. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So the YouTube audience wants to know, and you might not know this one, Ron. We might have you stumped. Can you bonsai a hemp plant?
Oh, many, many people I know grow those well. I
As
don't know.
bonsai?
I don't know about bonsai design,
Yeah.
but
Maybe the leaves are too big. You said small
yeah, I
leaves
don't know
are
about
good,
bonsai
so
design, but if you're in your garden, right, on a regular basis, caring for your trees, watering your trees, providing fertilizer and nutrients, then
What's a
naturally,
bonsai?
yeah, that's
okay.
funny.
That's a good one. That's a good
Naturally,
one.
you can easily take care of a hemp plant in your bonsai garden. So
There's a community for everything.
love it.
That's
Love
fantastic. So Kenny, yeah, he had a pomegranate on early. And if you missed the beginning, don't worry, we're going to have this on YouTube along with the links to the videos and the links to the clubs and everything else that that he had. My goodness, Ron, thank you so much for being here. And for the people that we didn't get to your questions, I don't know, we might have Bonsai 2.0. We might have Ron come in person.
Thank you. Thank you
Well,
for the
my takeaway is for all you guys that want to know more about bonsai, join a bonsai club, go to a bonsai show somewhere like the Fullerton Arboretum or Huntington. Support the community and they will support you back.
That's my takeaway.
There is a help me out if anybody in the chat, I can see you. There is a bonsai show this weekend at the Bowers Museum
In Santa Ana.
In Santa Ana. Correct me if I'm wrong, y'all, but I believe that's right. At the Bowers Museum. So already, boom, that's your first show. Go to that event. It's
Kofukai Bonsai Club.
That's right, Kofukai, one of the
bonsai,
best.
you missed it. Oh wait, this is last year.
Yeah, but
it's probably the same
this
people.
weekend. So Kofukai Bonsai show is this weekend at the Bowers Museum. It's a beautiful, beautiful space. There's going to be
I'm linking it. I'm linking
there.
it.
There's a
and of course, we can always follow you on at bonsai_LA. That's your Insta.
Yeah, I would love to chat with people there. If you follow me on Instagram, and please say hello. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ron. Thank you for everyone for being here. Thank you to our sponsors again. Thank you for all TPF members and supporters. If this is your first time interacting with us on Poppy Hour, we hope that you felt welcome. We hope that you come back. Next month, we have Nocturnal November. We're going to have Poppy Hour dedicated to bats and nighttime pollinator gardens. So yeah, there's something for everyone. Ron, when you have your trees outside, do you get a lot of night critters? You don't have your sound on.
I get all kinds of animals out there, possums and raccoons, and I had a hawk in the garden the other day. That was a bit of a gift. So yeah, it's a living organism out there.
Yes,
I'm one of the living creatures that lives out there.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Bonsai Master.
Thanks so much, Ron.
And thank you, Ron. Your enthusiasm is just exciting. I would have an indoor bonsai tree, but you know, I might take your class when you have it here at TPF.
Yeah, I think we're all inspired.
We're all inspired by you. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful Friday.
You too.
Good night, everybody.